Good morning. Today is the first day that I feel like I'm actually taking a breath. The last couple months have been pretty, what's a good word for it? Exciting, but not always positive excitement, if that makes sense. I'll explain. There's been a lot going on with my family, with my work. A lot of things have changed in the last month, and personally, it's exciting because whenever there's change, that means that there's growth. And that's what I mean by negative excitement is there can be negative things going on in my life, but I'm still looking at them as growth options. And that to me is exciting. It took me a long time to get that mindset, a very long time. Just 6 years ago, I was homeless in Chicago, Illinois, strung out on drugs and alcohol for a year and a half. And today, I own my own LLC. I do coaching, I do sales. I'm working on a studio right now behind me, getting that ready and developed. And my whole life is different. There's not one part of me that is the same. And unfortunately, for me to get sober, that's what it took. I had to change everything. But when you say that, when you think about that, that is daunting. So I want to make it a lot more simpler to understand. And I wanted to put the steps in order, so to speak. Now, for me, this is just for me. What works for other people didn't work for me. And it wasn't because I didn't try hard enough, or it's not because I didn't work the program. I went to rehab 5 times. I've worked the steps 4 times thoroughly, and they work for me. They work for me to get sober, okay, but not stay sober. In order to stay sober, I needed to deal with emotional baggage. I needed to up my emotional intelligence game. I didn't even know what those words meant. I didn't know what emotional intelligence was. The first step there is awareness. That's the first step in any problem. You have to become aware of it first. And I knew I had a problem for a long time. I just didn't want, and I would admit it. That's why I would go into rehabs and that's why I would work the steps. But I was definitely aware. But I had to do something about it. And that brings us to the second step. Once you're aware of the problem, you have to make a plan. You have to do something about it. And the third step is action. So I just want to make this very, very simple. So first step is awareness. And this goes with any habit, with any problem. In my 5 years of coaching and sobriety, I've seen a lot of people change a lot of habits. And the awareness is the first key. Second, you have to create a plan. What we're dealing with is not the drinking. We're dealing with a set of patterns and habits. That's what we're dealing with. So we have to look at it for that. Now, there's 4 steps within every single habit. This is what I've found. If you read Atomic Habits, they talk about 3 steps, but in particular for sobriety or in-depth habits work, I think that there's 4, and I'll explain each step. The first step in a habit is the cue. What sets it off? What sets the habit in motion? Let's say that I'm driving home and I just quit drinking and I drive by a liquor store. That would be the cue. The second step in every habit is the craving. So after the cue happens, what is the physical response? What is the emotional response? And what is the mental response? So in this case, in this example, I'd be driving by the liquor store and then boom, that's the cue. Then the craving hits. I get the sweats. I get my physical, right? So I start bouncing. I get a little anxious. That's the physical craving. The mental craving is, oh, I need a drink. Oh, I need a drink. Or I should stop and get a drink. The emotional craving is I'm feeling lost or without, like I need something. The third step is the routine. Okay, so at the cue, driving by the liquor store, the craving is the physical, mental, and emotional response. The routine is me pulling over, getting out of the car, and going in and buying the alcohol. So that is the actual habit there. The commitment of the habit is the routine. And then finally, the reward. So after I pull over, after I buy, I do the routine, I go in, I buy it. The reward for this particular habit, even though it's a negative one, is I feel relieved for a little bit because I drank. So those are the 4 steps to every habit. The reason why it's important to break this down is for what's called a pattern interrupt. Now, this is what I have found. Again, this is all me and my experience and what I've helped other people do. This goes for any habit. For any habit, you want to split it up into those 4 steps, those 4 stages. Write them down, and then you want to create a pattern interrupt. Now, you cannot create a pattern interrupt at the cue, because cues happen in our life. We can't control what happens around us. And you cannot create a pattern interrupt at the reward because it's already too late. The habit has been committed. The only 2 stages that you can create a pattern interrupt at is the craving and the routine. So for this instance, in this example that I've been saying, we'd want to create a pattern interrupt as soon as I start feeling the physical, the emotional, and the mental cravings. We want to create a pattern interrupt. It could be something and you want to make this simple. It could be something as simple as, okay, when I start feeling those, I need to become aware of it first. And then second, I'm going to tell myself I no longer drink, or I'm no longer a drinker, or I don't do that anymore, right? So like an affirmation, that could be one pattern interrupt. Another pattern interrupt is to take a different way home or to turn the other way. So as soon as you see it, you get the craving, just turn around or take a different way home. You can also create a pattern interrupt during the routine stage. So let's say I'm driving home, I see the liquor store, I get the craving, and I am getting ready to pull over. That's when you could create a pattern interrupt. So that could also be turning the other way. It could be saying an affirmation. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do, but just know that you can create a pattern interrupt at the craving and the routine stage only. Now, something to do once you come up with your pattern interrupts, and you have to do this for each and every single habit. When somebody's quitting drinking, we have to lay out every single habit that leads to them drinking, where the reward is them drinking and they're feeling whatever. So you have to lay it out in 4 stages and then create pattern interrupts for every single habit that leads to the action that you don't want to take. When you are doing this, when you are creating a pattern interrupt, you have to be honest with yourself. What is going to work? You don't want to just say that you're going to do something and then have an excuse when it really happens. Make sure that you're creating pattern interrupts and you're getting over the excuses and removing every excuse that you possibly can come up with in that instance when you're in the craving and the routine stage. Now, another important thing to understand is this takes time. I used to get angry very, very quickly, and I would snap. Every time I got angry, I had to lay out my habits. What was the cue? What was the craving? What was the routine? What was the reward? And where's my pattern interrupt? Now, for me, it was all about awareness. When I started implementing, my pattern interrupt was I needed to get out of the situation, just walk away. Apologize for being angry and then just walk away and get out of it. That was my pattern interrupt, because I came up with other ones and I tried them and they just didn't work. I wasn't honest with myself about how I was going to react to the pattern interrupt. So this was the only one that worked for me, was just to get out of the situation. When I implemented the habit, it took a while for me to get it. I'll give you an example here. So again, when I was angry, the first time that I did it, I wasn't aware of me getting angry until after I snapped. But I did notice that I snapped. So that was a little earlier than the time before. And then the next time, I had to forgive myself and be gracious with myself. And then the next time, I realized that I was snapping, and then I stopped, and then I walked away. So that was a little earlier than the previous time. And then the next time, I noticed that I was snapping at the very beginning, and I walked away. Apologize, walk away. And then the next time, I noticed that I was starting to get worked up, and I stopped it before I snapped. And then the next time I stopped it. So you get the point here, right? You're going to have to implement it over time and be forgiving and gracious with yourself, and probably tell the people around you what you're doing and trying to change. And they will honor it, and they'll be understanding as well. At least my parents were, my friends were, my family, all that. This is what it takes to break a bad habit. It's not an easy fix, but when you break it down into simple steps and then you understand that you need to be forgiving and gracious with yourself, it is doable. And I'm living proof of that. Again, I used to be homeless, snapping at everything, completely out of this world, living in a different reality. And I broke all those bad habits by using this exact formula and these steps. And now I've learned how to build habits and master habits. Now I'm waking up every morning at 5 o'clock. I do my 5-step morning routine until 5:20. Then I go to the gym at 5:30. Then I come back, I shower, and then I'm ready for work. I do that every single weekday morning. And then on the weekends, I have a routine as well. I've been able to build this over time because I've learned how to master habits. And this is the first step in terms of doing that. So this is the first video, just understanding what habits are and how to create pattern interrupts for them, and how to break bad habits. The next video I'm going to be talking about how to delete and add and edit old habits and add new habits. And then the third video will be creating new habits from scratch. Subscribe and follow for more.